as you said earlier, if we're going to measure it, it'll happen. I'd love for those to happen. There's pretty much no way those can happen and be a bad thing. So let's make those happen.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Agile or BS. I'm your host, Peter Saddington, at Agile Peter, and I'm with at Agile Bob from Agile For All. We love to answer your frequently asked questions, and we're going to take on one that's pretty much brought up pretty consistently in a lot of my classes, at least, the whole idea of increasing velocity, or how do we increase velocity? This whole idea, is it even something that's real agile, or is it BS? I'll let you, Bob, take the first crack at it. What is velocity first and foremost, and what makes it maybe BS in terms of, well, I'll let you fill in the blank.
So I think the term velocity is a lot like the velocity of a car. It's a measurement of something over something else, something over time. So in a car, it's miles per hour. In Agile, we generally call velocity the amount of work a team will accomplish within a sprint or an iteration. So same sort of concept. How far can a team get within a given period of time? And the concept of increasing velocity is an interesting one. I think that it's very agile to continuously want to improve. I don't think it's very agile to think that that only happens in terms of velocity. Because there are a number of ways that you can increase your velocity that are very bad. For example, if you're estimating in story points, you might say, oh, hey, everybody, we need to increase our velocity. So now everything we used to call a 1 is a 2. Hey, we just doubled our velocity. Yay, we're awesome. That's not going to help a lot of companies. And that's what happens when teams, by the way, are comparing velocity to each other and management thinks that it's a metric. So that's not very helpful. Velocity is a planning tool for a team. It should be used appropriately. So we'll get into that at a different time. But the concept of trying to go faster, you can do it in another bad way. Hey, Peter, you know what? We've got this prioritized list of things we're supposed to work on. But those things at the top, they're going to be kind of slow. So how about we just do a whole bunch of no value add work? We can go really fast on these things and get a bunch of quick wins, and our velocity will be gigantic. Well, that's not helpful either. So that doesn't work. I think the big thing to remember is that velocity is for planning how much work you can get done in a sprint, and you're going to use your highest priority value work to do that. But do it in the right way. Try to get better by learning new skills. Try to get better by working better together. Try to get better by being more efficient, more effective. Those would definitely be real agile. But this concept of saying that increasing velocity is the only metric that matters, that to me is 100% total BS.
Oh, I would absolutely agree. I think a lot of misinterpretation around velocity is that it is in many ways attached to teams and is seen as the primary metric in which to value the team or which to measure the team. Just as you said, there's so many different ways to measure value, and there's so many different ways to measure productivity and improvement. And this is one of the things that I talk about in my classes in my training with clients, is that when it comes to improving a team, there's 9 million ways to slice that cat. It doesn't have to be one single metric of velocity. Velocity is just, as you said, it's a planning tool for us to understand how much we can do within a set period or time box or sprint length. But there's other ways to improve teams, from their personal lives to work-life balance to their mental state, feeling a sense of belonging, feeling part of a team. There's so many different ways to improve teams, and it cannot be just a velocity metric. And I think in so many ways, when a management, and especially in command and control organizations, when management says, hey, you're doing 10 points per sprint velocity, make that 15. Well, guess what? They're going to do 15, whether that was actually valuable work or not. They're definitely going to hit that mark. And so I always like to say, whenever you are forcing a metric on a team, they will almost always make that metric. The question you have to ask yourself is whether that metric is it still valuable? And in many ways, when you force metrics like an increase of velocity onto a team, you actually ruin the ability for the team to be effective holistically along. And so when it comes to velocity, Agile or BS? For me, I'll say if you're forcing a velocity metric on a team, it's complete BS. It's just a planning tool. It's just a simple metric to say, hey, what can we do? But we also, as managers and leaders, have to look at other ways that teams are improving, not just one single metric.
So Peter, if velocity isn't the thing we should use, what are some things that would make sense from your perspective for us to use for teams to continue to try to improve, that would drive them to improve, that would show to management that they were improving?
That's a great question. So there's lots of different other metrics in terms of like, hey, are we lowering delay time? Are we, lead time, delay time, the cost of delay? We can look into that. What about our bugs? What about our bugs and patches? Are we reducing those? Technical debt is another metric we can look at as well. So there's so many different ways to look at improving a team or improving an organization. That's not just velocity. Again, I think we get management can focus in on velocity too much as their primary metric, but it's not the whole story. I think there's in a lot of ways there's so many things that you can't measure when it comes to improving teams. And this is one of the things that I enjoy the most about being a coach and trainer with teams is I get to understand how they're improving as a person. I'm big into digging deep with people and saying, hey, how are you improving this in your life? Or how are you improving your communication or your teamwork? How are you constantly learning? These are in many ways immeasurable to an organization. But at the end of the day, and actually for those who are interested, we've actually talked a little bit about this in a previous video, so make sure that you check that out. We talked about estimating with time or with points, often velocity, so make sure you guys check out that video. But one of the things that we kind of touched on there was this idea of velocity and time and output. And so the final thing I'll say here is what I'm kind of moving more towards is, what are we delivering? Let's focus more on the outcome and the output of delivery rather than what it means in terms of a point value. Are we getting real value out of that? Are our customers getting it in their hands and able to give us valid feedback, whether this is the right thing or not? I think output and outcome in a lot of ways trumps the number that's associated with it. I mean, kind of like what you said, we can deliver 100 points of value, but if nothing's actually clickable or functionable or reviewable, then those points mean nothing. I care most, especially coming from the bias as an engineer developer. For me, show me the money, show me something that you've built. That way I can give you feedback on it. Points be damned. Is it working? Great. Does it look beautiful? Great. Is it something that we can iterate and inspect and adapt on? Great. Other than that, the points mean a whole bunch of nothing to me.
Yeah, I think people think velocity is a forward indicator when it's really not. It's a planning tool. There are lots of trailing indicators that we can use that would be more helpful than velocity. I like to look at stakeholder satisfaction. That's prior to release. We can look at stakeholder satisfaction on an iteration or sprint by sprint boundary. We can certainly look at customer satisfaction. If we're striving for stakeholder and customer satisfaction, the only way we can get those to go up is by delivering value and delivering high value. And so, as you said earlier, if we're going to measure it, it'll happen. I'd love for those to happen. There's pretty much no way those can happen and be a bad thing. So let's make those happen.
Absolutely. So guys, let us know your thoughts on real Agile or BS when it comes to pumping up velocity numbers. Make sure to leave your comment below, subscribe, and check us out on agileforall.com if we can help you guys out. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.